On a rain-slick Lagos afternoon, a splash of muddy water crowns a stranger queen and exposes the poverty of her heart. An old man in faded slippers lowers his eyes, whispers, "Let heaven judge," and walks away. But Baba Adewale is not what the street thinks he is. As thunder rolls over Balogun Market, a new voice rises: Amara, the farm girl, with iron in her spine and mercy in her hands. From a small basket of okra seeds to the iron gates of a hidden mansion, destinies begin to braid. Love testing, pride, humility, confronting power. A jealous siren will scheme, a recording will surface, and the talking drums may beat for a wedding or for a reckoning. In this tale of masks and mirrors, the richest wealth is character, and the poorest beggar might be a king at home. Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from and your local time right now. And if heartfelt African stories move, you tap subscribe so you never miss a chapter. The rain had stopped, but the streets of Lagos still carried its memory. Puddles shimmered under the dim light of the late afternoon, and the air was heavy with the earthy smell of wet ground mixed with fried akara from a roadside stall. Baba Adewale sat quietly on a wooden bench near Balogun Market. His gray beard dripped slightly, and his old slippers squished with each step he had taken through the mud. To the world he looked like another forgotten elder, a beggar without name or home. But inside his eyes carried a calm that no storm could drown. He leaned on his walking stick, watching hawkers hustle, listening to their chants, as though each word was a song of survival. Then it happened. The roar of a black Range Rover tore through the narrow street. Without slowing, its tires cut through a large puddle, throwing a heavy wave of muddy water straight onto Baba Adewale. The liquid slapped against his face, soaking his threadbare shirt and trousers, until he looked like he had bathed in the gutter. Gasps filled the air. Traders dropped what they were doing. A young boy pointed his mouth open wide. "Ha, see wettin'," she do, a woman cried, her hands on her waist. The car screeched to a halt only a few meters ahead. Slowly, the tinted window rolled down. A woman's face appeared, framed by long braids and dark glasses. Her lips curled in contempt. "You old man," she said sharply. "Why are you sitting so close to the road? This is not your village." Before anyone could respond, she rolled the window back up and sped away, music blasting from the car's speakers. The crowd fell silent for a heartbeat. Then the whispers began. "Did you hear that?" a man asked, disbelief etched across his face. "Wicked woman," another shouted. "No shame at all. She can't even say sorry." "Isn't that Baba Adewale?" a young girl muttered, stepping closer. "He is always kind, always greeting people. Why treat him this way?" But Baba Adewale raised one hand gently. His voice was calm, steady, yet it carried an authority that made even the angriest among them fall quiet. "Leave her," he said softly. "Let heaven judge. Pride has its season." Some murmured in agreement, others shook their heads, but none dared push further. Baba stood slowly, his wet clothes clinging to his skin, and began his quiet walk away. What the market crowd did not know was that Baba Adewale's journey that day was not truly about seeking coins or food. It was about observing hearts. For beneath his worn clothes and quiet nature lay the father of one of Lagos's wealthiest young businessmen. His son, Kunle Adewale, owned companies that stretched from real estate in Lekki to shipping in Apapa. Their mansion stood tall in Victoria Island, yet Baba preferred the streets. He believed only by walking among ordinary people could he understand the hearts of women, the kind of woman he wished his son to marry. By the time Baba reached home, the heavy wooden doors of the Adewale estate swallowed him into silence. The marble floor gleamed, expensive artwork decorated the walls, and soft music floated from hidden speakers. Kunle sat on a leather couch, his tablet glowing with numbers and charts. Papa Kunle looked up, startled by his father's appearance. "What happened to your clothes?" Baba smiled faintly, removing his soaked shirt. "The rain still plays tricks, my son." But Kunle wasn't fooled. He had seen that look in his father's eyes before, the look that meant something had disturbed his peace. He set the tablet aside. "You were outside again, weren't you?" Kunle asked, frustration creeping into his voice. "Papa, why? You don't need to sit on the roadside. You don't need to put yourself through this." Baba lowered himself gently onto the couch. His voice was quiet but firm. "I will not stop, Kunle. Not until I find a woman who will bring peace into this house. You are 36. It is time." Kunle sighed, running a hand over his face. "Papa, I already have someone." Baba's eyes lit with hope. "You do?" "Yes," Kunle admitted, though hesitation thickened his tone. "Her name is Zainab." At that name, Baba's heart sank. He remembered the black Range Rover, the mud splashing, the words that cut deeper than water. But he said nothing, only leaned forward. "Tell me about her," he urged. Kunle hesitated, then spoke. "She is beautiful, Papa, very beautiful, but she has a sharp tongue. She looks down on people, spends money like sand. Sometimes she can be sweet, but other times," he shook his head, "she becomes someone else. Proud, loud, careless." Baba closed his eyes briefly, gathering his thoughts. When he opened them, his gaze pierced his son. "My son," he said slowly, "beauty is not everything. Does she respect you?" Kunle was silent. "Does she respect herself?" Baba pressed. Still, Kunle gave no answer. Baba leaned back, sighing deeply. "I have lived long enough to know. A wife must bring peace, not noise. She must build, not scatter. Bring her here, let me see her with my eyes. If I find humility, I will bless you both. If I find pride, I will tell you the truth, even if it hurts." Kunle nodded reluctantly. "She can come this weekend." "Good," Baba replied. "But tell her nothing. Let her come as she is. I want to see the woman behind the mask." That night, as the rain returned lightly, Baba stood by the window, watching droplets slide against the glass. He whispered a Yoruba proverb under his breath. Iwa lewa, character is beauty. For he knew that the path ahead would test not only his son's heart, but also the very soul of the woman who sought to enter their home. Far across the city, in her penthouse apartment, Zainab scrolled through her phone, her latest selfie crowned with a caption, "Only the strong walk over the weak. Boss queen forever." Her followers flooded the post with praise. She smiled, basking in their flattery, blind to the storm her pride was summoning. And somewhere else in Lagos, in a small rented room lit by a flickering bulb, Amara sat cross-legged, sketching rows of okra and pepper on a scrap of paper. Her dreams were simple: a small farm, a chance to feed her family, a life of dignity. She did not yet know that fate was weaving her name into the Adewale family story, or that her courage would soon be tested in the very heart of Lagos society. The city was alive that night, cars honking, generators humming, street preachers shouting prayers. Yet 3 lives were being drawn together by unseen threads: the proud, the humble, and the watchful. By dawn, Lagos would wake again, but nothing would ever be the same. The weekend came quickly, and with it a nervous tension that neither father nor son could quite hide. The Adewale mansion gleamed under the late morning sun, its marble steps polished until they shone like glass. Kunle paced the living room, adjusting his cufflinks again and again, though he rarely wore them outside of business meetings. Baba Adewale sat calmly in his favorite armchair, the same one he often occupied after long walks through the streets of Lagos. His face was unreadable, but his mind was alive with thoughts. Kunle's voice finally broke the silence. "Papa, maybe I shouldn't have invited her here. Maybe you will judge her too quickly." Baba looked at him steadily. "Judgment is not mine to give, Kunle. I only watch and speak the truth I see. The rest is up to you." Kunle exhaled heavily, pressing his palms together. "I know you want me to marry, but love is complicated, Papa. Sometimes we see the flaws and still we want to believe they can change." Baba's eyes softened. "And sometimes, my son, believing that is like holding fire with bare hands, hoping it will cool with time." Before Kunle could reply, the sound of tires crunching on gravel reached them. Both men turned toward the window. A sleek black Range Rover rolled to a stop in the driveway. The driver's door opened, and out stepped Zainab. Her heels clicked loudly as she walked up the steps, her designer handbag swinging with each motion. She was dressed to impress: gold earrings, a silk blouse, and a confident smile plastered on her lips. Kunle swallowed hard. "She's here." When the door opened, Zainab entered with the air of a queen surveying her palace. "Kunle," she exclaimed, wrapping her arms around him dramatically. "This place is decent. Not as modern as my own apartment, but I see you've tried." Kunle forced a smile. "Thank you, Zainab. This is my father." Zainab turned and froze. Her eyes locked on the old man seated calmly on the armchair. For a moment, her entire body stiffened. The smile vanished. "You," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Yes," Baba said, his tone steady. "We have met before. Twice." Kunle looked between them, confused. "Wait, you know my father?" Zainab stammered, her eyes darting to the floor. I didn't know he was your father." "You didn't need to know," Baba replied, his gaze piercing her soul. "You only needed to show respect." Kunle frowned. "What is going on here?" Baba leaned forward, his voice calm yet sharp. "This woman splashed mud on me at Balagun Market and mocked me. She said I didn't belong in the city." Days later, she spat words of venom at me outside the supermarket, calling me useless, cursed, and a disgrace. And now she stands here as your guest. Kunle's mouth fell open. Is this true? He demanded, turning to Zainab. Her lips trembled. I thought he was just a beggar. I didn't mean... Even if he was a beggar, Kunle snapped, his voice rising. Is that how you treat people? I didn't know, she cried, tears brimming in her eyes. Kunle, please, I didn't know he was your father. Baba rose slowly, his presence commanding. That is the problem, my daughter. True kindness does not depend on who someone is. You are kind because kindness is in you, whether before a king or a beggar. But you showed me your heart twice, and both times it was filled with pride. Silence fell. The sound of Zainab's shallow breathing was the only thing breaking it. Kunle turned away, disappointment heavy on his face. You told me you loved me, he said quietly. But how can you love me and insult my father? I do love you, Zainab insisted, clutching his arm. No, he said firmly, pulling away. You love yourself. A woman who loves me will honor the man who raised me. Tears spilled freely down Zainab's cheeks. She dropped her handbag onto the polished floor with a thud. Please forgive me, both of you. I was wrong. Baba shook his head gently. Forgiveness is easy, but trust is not. You have shown us your face. We cannot unsee it. Zainab reached for Kunle again, but he stepped back. The finality in his eyes told her everything. She gathered her bag, bowed her head, and left the mansion without another word. The heavy door closed behind her, leaving a silence that felt almost sacred. Kunle stood rooted to the floor, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. Papa, he said softly, I have been blind. Baba placed a hand on his son's shoulder. It is not blindness, my son. It is the fog of beauty. But now the fog has lifted. That evening the house was unusually quiet. Kunle sat outside under the mango tree in their courtyard, replaying the day's events over and over. He could not shake the shame he felt, not only for Zainab's behavior, but also for his own willingness to overlook it. As he sat there, his phone buzzed. A message from his friend invited him to a social gathering in Victoria Island. But Kunle ignored it. He needed space, silence, something different. He rose, walked to his car, and drove without destination. After an hour of aimless driving, he stopped at a small open field behind a row of stores. The land was quiet, the smell of damp soil still fresh from the week's rain. Kunle sat on a wooden bench beneath a mango tree, closing his eyes and breathing deeply. When he opened them, he noticed someone at the far end of the field. A young woman bent over, inspecting the soil with her hands. Her dress was simple, her hair tied back, her face free of makeup. Yet something about her presence radiated peace. She carried a small bag of seeds in one hand, a hoe in the other. She looked up, noticed Kunle, and offered a warm smile. Good morning, she greeted, though the sun was already tilting toward afternoon. Kunle managed a small smile in return. Good morning. She walked closer, her sandals brushing against the grass. Are you from around here? Kunle shook his head. No, just passing through. Needed a break. She nodded. Me too. Well, not really a break. I'm here to start something. She gestured toward the land. I plan to farm here. Just a little patch of okra pepper vegetables. Kunle raised an eyebrow. You, a farm. She laughed, her voice light and genuine. Why not? Most people think farming is for the old or the poor. But I studied agriculture at the university. It's my passion. No job yet, but I still have 2 hands and a strong back. Kunle chuckled softly, surprised by her confidence. That's rare. She dropped her bag and extended her hand. I'm Amara. Kunle, he replied, shaking her hand. They sat together under the mango tree, the breeze carrying the scent of wet soil. Amara spoke with an ease that calmed him. She told him about her family in Abia, her parents who farmed for survival, her struggle to find work in the city. Yet she carried no bitterness, only hope. Kunle found himself listening more than speaking, drawn in by her sincerity. For the first time in years, he felt seen not as a wealthy businessman, but as a man. When Amara rose to begin planting, she looked at him playfully. You, with your polished shoes and clean hands, can you farm? Kunle laughed. I can learn. She smiled, handing him a small handful of seeds. Then let's start with okra. As the sun dipped lower, the two of them worked side by side, pressing seeds into the soil. Kunle's hands grew dirty, but his heart felt lighter than it had in years. He glanced at Amara, often marveling at her determination, her laughter, her peace. He did not know yet that this woman was the same Amara who had defended his father outside the supermarket. Nor did Amara know that Kunle was the son of the man she had promised to help farm. But destiny, silent and patient, was weaving their stories together with threads stronger than wealth, stronger than pride. By the time they finished, the horizon glowed with the deep orange of sunset. Amara wiped sweat from her brow and smiled. This is only the beginning. Kunle nodded his chest, swelling with something he could not yet name. Yes, he said quietly, the beginning of something true. The next day dawned bright and humid, the kind of Lagos morning, where the air felt heavy even before the sun had fully risen. Traders at Victoria Island were already setting up their stalls, their voices ringing across the busy street. Among them, Baba Adewale found his quiet spot near the entrance of a large supermarket. His clothes were as simple as always, his slippers worn thin, but his presence was steady. A plastic bowl lay before him, though he never asked anyone to fill it. He simply sat observing, listening, learning. People passed by, some dropping a few naira notes, others walking past without a glance. Baba never complained. He was a watcher, and the world gave him enough to see. Then, once again, the familiar roar of a black Range Rover pierced the morning air. The car came to a sharp halt in front of the supermarket. Out stepped Zainab, heels clicking, sunglasses hiding her eyes, music thundering from her car. When her gaze fell upon Baba, her lips twisted in disgust. You again, she snapped, her voice loud enough to turn heads. Old dirty man, why do you disgrace yourself like this, sitting here like a goat with no shame? The crowd stirred, whispers spreading like fire. But Zainab was just beginning. Look at your clothes, she sneered, smelling of poverty. Maybe you were cursed, eh? People like you are the reason Nigeria is backward, sitting here waiting for pity instead of dying quietly. She spat near his feet. Baba said nothing. He sat still, his silence like a shield. But then another voice cut through the noise. Strong, feminine, unshaken. Enough. All eyes turned to the young woman who had just stepped out of the supermarket, grocery bags in her hands. She was dressed simply, her hair tied back, but her presence commanded attention. Her name was Amara Nkem. Zainab turned to her, eyebrows arched. And who are you? Someone who still has sense, Amara replied, her voice sharp but steady. The crowd murmured approvingly. Zainab laughed harshly. Another poor rat trying to feel important. Stay out of this, girl. You're insulting an old man for no reason, Amara said firmly. What did he do to you? He exists, Zainab barked. That's what he did. Poor dirty men like him shouldn't be outside messing up the city. Amara stepped closer, her eyes unblinking. He's old enough to be your father. So Zainab shouted, her voice rising. Is he my father? Look at him. Probably your father. You both look poor. The crowd gasped, but Amara's face didn't flinch. Maybe he is my father, she said quietly. At least he's not empty like you. The insult landed like a slap. Zainab's face twisted with rage. Do you know who I am? Do you know who my boyfriend is? I can get you arrested in 2 minutes. Amara's voice was calm, almost soothing. Arrest me for telling you to respect an old man. You're not rich, Zainab. You're just loud. Loud is not the same as wealthy. The words struck harder than any scream could. The crowd chuckled nervously, some even clapping. You dare talk to me like that? Zainab's hands shook, her chest heaving. Yes, Amara answered simply, because nobody ever taught you how to behave. She pointed at Baba. One day this same man you insult will be the one you'll bow to. Zainab's lips trembled with fury, but before she could say another word, Amara gestured toward her car. Take your proud legs and leave. The market buzzed with tension. Zainab's face turned red, her pride wounded in public. She stormed back to her car, slammed the door, and sped away, her tires screeching as the black Range Rover vanished down the road. The crowd erupted in murmurs, some shaking their heads, others praising Amara, but she ignored them all. Her eyes turned to Baba Adewale, who had watched the entire scene in silence. She bent slightly, placing her groceries down. I'm sorry, Papa, she said softly. Baba lifted his gaze to her, his eyes warm despite the insult he had endured. Thank you, my daughter. She smiled faintly. I couldn't let her speak to you like that. He nodded slowly. These days, not many people stand up. You are different. She sat beside him on the bench, her groceries still at her feet. What's your name, Papa? People call me Baba Adewale, he replied. She extended her hand. I'm Amara. He shook it gently. A beautiful name. She looked into his eyes with genuine concern. Papa, where do you stay? He hesitated, then answered quietly. I sleep in an empty shop at the edge of town. The owner allows me to stay there. It's not much, but it keeps the rain away. Amara's face dropped. Oh, Papa, I'm so sorry. He shook his head gently. Don't be. Life has its seasons. I may be poor, but I still have my peace. She studied him carefully. You seem too wise to be sitting here like this. Baba smiled faintly. Life teaches wisdom when you have nothing left but yourself. Amara was quiet for a moment, then leaned closer. Papa, I studied agriculture. I'm a graduate, but I've had no job for a year. My parents are poor farmers in Abia. But I was thinking maybe instead of you sitting here, we can start a little farm. Even behind that shop, we can plant something simple. Tomatoes, pepper, yugu. At least it will feed you and maybe we can sell a little. Baba blinked, surprised. You want to help me farm? Yes, Papa, Amara said with conviction. I don't have money, but I have strength. I can work. It's better than waiting. You'll eat fresh food and you won't have to sit here again. Baba looked at her in silence, his heart stirring. You are too kind. She shook her head. No, Papa. I just believe good people deserve help too. You hardly know me, he said softly. I know enough, Amara replied. You didn't say a word when that woman insulted you. That silence told me everything I need to know. Baba chuckled quietly, deeply moved. You are different, my daughter. I try, she said with a smile. So what do you say? We can start small. Even just one basket of okra. It's something. They both laughed softly. Amara stood, picked up her groceries and waved. Okay, Papa. See you tomorrow. He nodded. I'll be here. As she walked away, Baba watched her go, something stirring in his chest, not sadness, not shame, but hope. He lifted his face to the sky and whispered, Lord, could she be the one? That evening, Baba returned to the mansion with a smile on his face. Kunle noticed immediately. Papa? He asked curiously what happened today. Baba sat beside him. Kunle, I met someone, a woman not with riches or pride, but with dignity, with courage. She stood up against arrogance and defended me when I was silent. Kunle frowned slightly. Who is she? Her name is Amara, Baba, said, his eyes shining. She studied agriculture. No job yet, but she has vision. She offered to help me farm, not because I asked, but because she saw value in my life. Kunle was silent, listening. Kunle Baba continued, this is the kind of woman who brings peace into a home. She may not have wealth, but her character is gold. Kunle shifted uneasily. Papa, are you saying she could be? Baba raised a hand. I am saying nothing yet, but tomorrow when she comes again, I want you to see with your own eyes. Sometimes my son blessings come wrapped in simple clothes. Kunle nodded slowly, but his heart was conflicted. He had just met a woman in the fields who had touched something deep inside him. And now his father spoke of another Amara with the same fire. He did not yet realize that both were one and the same. And so the stage was set. The proud, the humble, and the searching hearts of father and son all caught in the web of destiny that Lagos had begun to weave. The sun had barely lifted above the lagoon when the Adewale mansion stirred awake. Kunle sat at the long dining table staring at a cup of untouched tea. He had slept little, his mind entangled with questions he could not resolve. Zainab's humiliation still burned in his memory, and yet his father's words about Amara haunted him. Could there truly be a woman whose character outshone beauty, whose heart could bring peace into a home? He wanted to believe it, but belief alone was fragile. Baba Adewale entered the dining hall, his white kaftan crisp, his walking stick tapping gently against the tiled floor. His face held a serenity that seemed almost unshakable, but Kunle could tell that behind it lay deep thought. Papa, Kunle began hesitantly. I don't understand. You keep speaking of character as though it is everything. But love is more than that, isn't it? Baba lowered himself slowly into a chair opposite his son. He folded his hands, his eyes locking onto Kunle's. My son, beauty fades, wealth changes hands, but character remains. A woman without humility will drain your peace, no matter how much love you claim to feel. Have you forgotten your own mother? Kunle's chest tightened. His mother, gone many years, had been a woman of quiet strength. She had no taste for flashy things, no love for gossip or vanity. She built the home with patience, teaching Kunle the value of work and honesty. Her memory alone silenced his argument. You are right, Papa, he admitted softly. Baba nodded. Then listen. Yesterday, Amara showed me her heart without knowing who I am. She offered to help me not because she wanted anything in return, but because kindness is in her blood. That is what I seek for you. That is the kind of woman who will not bring noise to your table. Kunle leaned back, troubled. But Papa, you asked me to believe in someone you just met. How can we be sure? Baba's lips curved into a faint smile. We will see with time. But know this, Kunle life often hides its greatest treasures in simple packages. If you judge by surface alone, you will miss gold. As the day passed, Baba returned to his quiet spot outside the supermarket. He sat as always calm, watchful, his bowl before him. True to her word, Amara appeared again, carrying a small notebook and a basket of vegetables she had purchased cheaply from another market. "Papa," she greeted cheerfully, setting the basket beside him. "I brought you something to eat." He smiled warmly. "Thank you, my daughter. You didn't need to trouble yourself." "It's no trouble," she said, sitting beside him. "I told you yesterday I wanted to help you. Today I came with a plan." She opened her notebook, showing him sketches of garden rows, lists of vegetables, and notes on rainfall patterns. "If we start small with okra and pepper, we can harvest in 2 months. We can sell at the market and keep some for food. It won't make us rich, but it will keep you from sitting here in the dust." Baba studied the notebook with genuine interest. Her handwriting was neat, her ideas practical. He could see the thought she had put into it. "You have a wise head on young shoulders," he said softly. Amara smiled. "Wisdom doesn't put food on the table, Papa. Hard work does. But I know one thing: respect and kindness are more valuable than money. They are the soil where good things grow." Her words touched Baba deeply. He turned his face slightly, hiding the moisture forming in his eyes. In her, he saw not only a future for his son, but also a reminder of his late wife, the same humility, the same strength. As they spoke, Kunle approached quietly, having followed his father's instructions to come. He had not expected to find Amara there, speaking passionately about farming, her hands moving with energy, her eyes glowing with determination. For a moment, Kunle stood frozen, realizing with a shock that this was the very same woman he had met under the mango tree the day before, the one who had handed him okra seeds with laughter in her voice. Baba noticed his son and beckoned him forward. "Kunle, come. This is Amara, the woman I told you about." Amara looked up, startled. Her groceries nearly toppled as she rose to her feet. "You," she gasped, recognition dawning. Kunle smiled faintly, equally stunned. "So it was you." "What do you mean?" Baba asked, looking between them. Kunle explained softly. "Yesterday I wandered near a small field. I met a woman who was planning to farm. She gave me seeds, Papa. We planted together. That woman was her." Amara covered her mouth, overwhelmed. "I didn't know." Baba chuckled, his eyes lifting skyward. "The Almighty weaves threads tighter than we can imagine." But Kunle remained quiet, his thoughts racing. He was impressed, yes. He admired her kindness. Yet doubts lingered. Could such a simple woman truly fit into the demanding life he lived? Could she survive the scrutiny of Lagos society? Amara, sensing the tension, gathered her notebook. "Papa, I will come again tomorrow. We can begin preparing the soil behind your shop. That's if you are ready." Baba hesitated, then said gently, "Not tomorrow, my daughter. Tomorrow you will come to my home." Amara blinked. "Your home? But you said—" He smiled faintly. "There are things you don't yet know. Come, and you will understand." Confusion clouded her face, but she nodded slowly. "If you wish, Papa." As she left, Kunle turned to his father. "Papa, why did you invite her to the house? Won't that confuse her? She thinks you are poor." Baba's eyes sparkled. "And that is why I must show her the truth. A heart tested in humility will shine even brighter when faced with wealth. Let her see us as we are. Then you will know if her kindness was genuine." That night, Amara sat in her small rented room, staring at the piece of paper Baba had handed her with an address scribbled on it. Something in her heart told her this man was no ordinary beggar. Yet she feared what tomorrow would reveal. Meanwhile, across the city, Zainab drowned her bitterness in champagne, surrounded by friends who flattered her pride. But beneath her laughter, anger festered. She had been shamed publicly by that farm girl Amara. And worse, Kunle's eyes no longer looked at her with admiration. They held disappointment. Rage twisted inside her. She clenched her glass tightly, whispering to herself, "This is not over. I will make her regret ever standing against me." The stage was shifting. Paths were converging. And in the heart of Lagos, where wealth and poverty rubbed shoulders daily, a drama of love, pride, and humility was reaching its first crescendo. For in less than 24 hours, Amara would walk through the gates of a mansion she never dreamed of entering, and in that moment, every mask would fall. The morning was quiet in Victoria Island, a rare kind of silence that only came after heavy rain. The Adewale mansion stood tall and majestic, its white walls gleaming under the rising sunday. Inside, the air was heavy with expectation. Baba Adewale had risen early, bathed and dressed in a simple yet elegant agbada. He sat in the living room, his walking stick beside him, his heart strangely unsettled. Kunle paced near the wide windows, his eyes darting between his father and the main gate. Today would decide much about his future. When the sound of tires on the gravel driveway reached them, both men looked up. Kunle's chest tightened. He had called Zainab the night before, determined to let her face his father. Though doubts gnawed at him, a part of him still hoped she could redeem herself. Moments later, the door opened and Zainab entered with all the confidence of a queen. She wore a shimmering gown, high heels that clicked against the marble floor, and a perfume so strong it dominated the room. Her smile was wide, her posture proud, as if she were entering her own palace. "Kunle," she exclaimed, striding forward to embrace him. "Your home is lovely. Not quite as modern as mine, but still charming." Kunle forced a thin smile. "Thank you. This is my father." Zainab turned and froze. Her sunglasses slipped slightly down her nose as her eyes widened in horror. There, sitting calmly in the armchair, was the old man she had mocked twice. The beggar she had splashed with mud and spat on at the supermarket. Her lips parted, but no words came out. "You," she whispered. "Yes, Baba Adiwale," said, his tone calm but firm. "We have met before. Twice." Kunle's brows furrowed. "Wait, you know my father?" Zainab stammered, her voice trembling. I didn't know he was your father, I thought." "You thought he was beneath you," Baba interrupted sharply. "You thought he was worthless. That is enough." Kunle's face twisted with confusion and anger. He turned to his girlfriend. "Is this true? Did you insult my father?" Zainab's hands shook. "Kunle, please, I didn't mean it. I thought he was just some beggar. I didn't know." "That's the point," Baba said, rising slowly. His presence filled the room. "You did not need to know. Kindness does not depend on status. A heart that only respects wealth is no heart at all." Zainab's voice cracked. "Please, sir, forgive me. I was angry. I was careless." Baba shook his head. "Forgiveness is easy, but trust is not. You insulted me when you thought I had nothing, twice. And now you stand here in my son's house, ashamed only because of who I am." Kunle's chest heaved with heavy breaths. He looked at her with disappointment, the last remnants of affection fading from his eyes. "You told me you loved me, Zainab. But how can you love me and despise the man who raised me?" Tears streamed down her cheeks. She reached for his hand, but he pulled away. "Kunle, I do love you." "No," he said sharply. "You love yourself, because a woman who loves me would honor my father no matter how he appeared to her." The silence that followed was suffocating. Finally, Zainab dropped her expensive handbag onto the floor. She fell to her knees before Baba. "Please forgive me. Give me another chance." Baba looked down at her, his face unreadable. "My daughter, forgiveness is one thing, but character is not easily changed. You have shown me your face, and I cannot unsee it." Kunle turned away, his shoulders heavy with shame. "This is over, Zainab." She let out a sharp sob, grabbed her bag, and hurried toward the door. The sound of her heels echoed through the hall until the door slammed shut behind her. The mansion fell into silence once again. Kunle stood motionless for a long time. Finally, he turned to his father. "Papa, I was blind." Baba placed a steady hand on his son's shoulder. "No, my son, you were only deceived by beauty. But now the fog is lifted." That evening, the mansion remained still, but Kunle's heart was restless. He wandered into the garden, staring at the stars above. For the first time in years, he felt empty, uncertain of what kind of woman could truly fit into his life. He wanted peace, but he feared that such peace did not exist in the Lagos he knew. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Amara prepared to honor her promise. She held the piece of paper Baba had given her with the mansion's address. "This can't be right," she muttered to herself. "How can that old man who sleeps in a shop live in such a place?" Yet something in her heart urged her to go. The next morning, she bathed, tied her hair neatly, and wore her simplest dress. She clutched her handbag nervously as she boarded a bus toward Victoria Island. The journey felt longer than usual, every stop echoing her doubts. When she finally arrived at the towering gates of the Adevale estate, her steps faltered. The mansion loomed behind tall white walls, flowers blooming along the driveway. She stared at the address again, then at the massive gate. "No, this must be a mistake." A security guard approached. "Yes, young lady. Can I help you?" She hesitated, then held out the paper. "I'm looking for Baba Adiwale. He gave me this address." The guard eyed her suspiciously, then nodded. "Wait here." Minutes later, the gates creaked open. "Come in." Amara's sandals tapped nervously against the smooth tiles as she walked inside. The beauty of the place stunned her, the clean walls, the glass windows, the flower pots, the silence. She clutched her bag tighter, her heart racing. And then from the wide entrance, she heard footsteps. She turned and froze. It was Kunle. He stood there dressed simply, yet every inch of him radiated presence. Recognition struck both of them at the same time. Kunle, Amara whispered. His eyes widened. Amara. They stared at each other, shock written on both faces. Before either could speak, another voice called from behind him. My daughter. Amara's eyes widened further. Baba Adewale stepped out of the living room smiling broadly. Welcome. Her knees almost buckled. Papa, you live here, but you said… Baba chuckled softly. Yes, I said I slept in a shop. But I needed to see how people treated me when they thought I had nothing. Amara looked from him to Kunle, then back again. Wait, he is your son, she asked, pointing at Kunle. Kunle smiled faintly. Yes, I am his son. Amara covered her mouth in shock. I don't understand. Baba stepped closer. You don't need to, my daughter. What matters is what you showed me when you thought I had nothing. That is the true test of character. Her eyes watered. So, you were testing me. No, Baba said softly. I was watching. And you passed. Amara looked at Kunle again, her heart beating fast. The man she had planted seeds with under the mango tree was the son of the very man she had defended in the market. It felt unreal. Kunle took a step closer. Amara. It seems fate has been weaving our paths long before we knew it. For a long moment, silence filled the room, charged tender and full of possibilities. But unknown to them, outside the mansion walls, Zainab sat in her car watching. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but now they burned with something darker. She clenched the steering wheel tightly. If I can't have him, she whispered through gritted teeth, no one will. Her pride had been shattered, her reputation bruised. But in her heart, a dangerous seed had taken root, and soon she would water it with vengeance. Inside the mansion, though, all that mattered was the quiet spark between Kunle and Amara, and the hope in Baba Adewale's heart that perhaps, just perhaps, the right woman had finally stepped into their lives. The following day began with a soft light of dawn washing over the city. Lagos, ever restless, was already alive. Hawkers shouting prices of bread and Akara buses honking children, chasing one another before school. Yet in the Adewale mansion, a different rhythm unfolded. The house was calm, the only sound being the rustle of the curtains as the breeze swept through the wide windows. Kunle rose early. His mind had not rested well since yesterday's revelation. He had not only discovered that Amara was the same woman his father had praised, but also that fate had entangled their paths in ways he could not deny. He dressed simply in a short-sleeved shirt and dark trousers, for he wanted no barriers today between himself and the world he hoped to understand better. Baba Adewale, on the other hand, sat in the courtyard, sipping a small cup of tea. His eyes twinkled with quiet satisfaction. He had watched Amara's face when she stepped into the mansion yesterday, the shock, the disbelief, but also the absence of greed. Many others would have widened their eyes with hunger at the sight of wealth, but she only looked confused, even hesitant. That told him much about her heart. Kunle Baba called as his son stepped into the courtyard today. Walk with me. Where to, Papa? To see the land where your future may begin, Baba replied with a faint smile. They drove together to the outskirts of town, where a stretch of soil lay waiting behind a row of small shops. The same field where Amara had planted seeds now glistened with morning dew. She was already there, bent low, her hands covered in earth, her simple dress brushing against her knees. When she saw them approach, she straightened, wiping her forehead with the back of her hand. You came, she said, her voice light with surprise. Baba chuckled. Did you think we would not? Amara's eyes moved to Kunle, and for a heartbeat silence lingered between them. There was recognition, yes, but also a new awareness, an understanding that what lay between them was no longer just coincidence. I didn't expect you both, she admitted softly. Today I want to see with my own eyes what you dream of, Baba replied. Amara gestured to the soil, her eyes lighting with enthusiasm. Here, Papa. The land is not large, but it is fertile. If we start with okra and pepper, we can harvest in 2 months. Vegetables like ugu will thrive too, especially with the rains coming. This land may look small, but with the right care, it can feed a family and even earn a little at the market. Her passion was undeniable. Kunle watched her closely, noting how she spoke with her hands, how her voice rose with conviction. She was not a woman chasing status. She was a woman building visions from the ground up. Without warning, a sudden drizzle began, fine drops falling from the gray clouds above. Amara quickly pulled a piece of cloth from her bag, covering the small basket of seeds she had brought. The rain grew heavier, and in minutes the soil turned slippery. "Oh no," Amara muttered, trying to shield the seedlings. Kunle, without hesitation, rushed to help. He bent beside her, his clean trousers quickly smeared with mud. She glanced at him, surprised, then laughed. "Your shoes will hate you for this." He smiled, shaking his head. "Shoes can be washed, but seeds must be protected." Baba stood a little distance away, his walking stick planted firmly in the wet soil, watching the two young people bend together, their laughter mixing with the sound of rain. A proverb whispered in his heart, "When two hands meet in labor, harmony is born." The rain passed as quickly as it came, leaving behind a fresh scent that clung to the earth. Amara examined the soil, sighing in relief that the seeds were unharmed. "Thank you," she said quietly, turning to Kunle. He met her gaze steadily. "You don't need to thank me. This is your vision. I only followed." Baba cleared his throat softly, interrupting the silence that was beginning to thicken. "My children," he said, "rain is a test. It tells us who complains and who adapts. Today I saw no complaints, only two people protecting life together." Amara lowered her gaze, a faint blush warming her cheeks. As they walked back toward the car, Baba spoke again. "Amara, tomorrow you must come to the mansion properly. Sit at our table, eat with us. I want you to be seen, not as a helper, but as family." Her eyes widened. "Papa, that is too much. I am not—" "You are not poor in spirit," Baba interrupted gently. "That is what matters." She hesitated, then nodded. "If you wish it." Later that evening, Kunle found himself restless once again. He stepped outside to the mango tree where he and Amara had first met. He leaned against its trunk, remembering the laughter they had shared while planting seeds. It had been such a simple moment, yet it had left an imprint on his heart deeper than any glamorous night out with Zainab ever had. Kunle Baba's voice came softly behind him. "Yes, Papa." "You are thinking too much," Baba said with a smile. Kunle sighed. "I can't help it. Papa, she is different. But I fear the world we live in will not understand. People will mock me for choosing a woman who has no wealth, no status." Baba placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "Let them mock, Kunle. Mockery cannot break a home, but pride can. Remember this, a house built on character will stand longer than one built on gold." Kunle closed his eyes, letting the words sink in. Meanwhile, across the city, Zainab sat in her apartment, her nails tapping furiously against her phone screen. She scrolled through pictures of Kunle, her jaw tightening. "So he thinks he can throw me away for that farm girl," she muttered. She picked up her phone and made a call. The voice that answered was deep and rough. "Sko," she said coldly. "I have a job for you." "What kind of job?" he asked. "I want that girl out of the picture," Zainab hissed. "And if her old beggar friend gets in the way, remove him too. Do whatever it takes." There was silence on the line then. Sko replied, "You'll pay well for this." "Money is not a problem," Zainab snapped. "Just make sure it is done." She ended the call, her eyes glittering with malice. But what she didn't know was that Sko remembered Kunle, remembered the man who had once helped his family when they had nothing. And though he agreed to the plan, a seed of hesitation had already taken root in his mind. Back at the mansion, the night deepened. Amara sat in her small room, clutching the piece of paper with Baba's address, wondering what tomorrow would bring. Kunle sat under the mango tree, whispering a prayer for guidance. And Baba Adewale, wise and patient, closed his eyes in faith that character would triumph over pride. The threads of fate were tightening, drawing them toward a confrontation none could avoid. The following morning arrived with the sound of birdsong echoing through the tall mango trees that lined the Adewale estate. The mansion gleamed as if waiting for something monumental. Baba Adewale rose before the servants stirred his heart light, yet full of anticipation. Today would not be an ordinary day. Today, truth would stand revealed. Amara, meanwhile, stood outside the black iron gates of the mansion, clutching her small handbag. She stared at the wide driveway, stretching into the distance, lined with flowers and palm trees. The sight overwhelmed her. Her heart pounded as she whispered to herself, "This cannot be the home of the same man I saw sitting on the roadside." Doubt made her hands tremble, but she remembered Baba's warm voice. "Come tomorrow, my daughter. You will understand." The guard opened the gate, and Amara stepped in her sandals, tapping nervously against the polished tiles of the courtyard. She walked slowly, each step carrying a weight of disbelief. The front door opened, and Kunle appeared. He wore a simple white shirt, but his presence filled the entrance. Their eyes met, and for a moment both froze. Amara's lips parted, her voice a whisper. "You?" "Yes," Kunle said quietly. "I am his son." Before she could process, Baba's deep, calm voice floated from behind him. My daughter, welcome. Amara turned, and there he was, no longer the beggar sitting in the dust but the patriarch of this grand house. His agbada was spotless, his walking stick polished, his smile calm and knowing. Tears welled in Amara's eyes. Papa, you deceived me, she said, her voice breaking. No, my child, Baba corrected gently. I watched you. The world kneels for wealth and spits on poverty, but you knelt for kindness. That is something rare. Kunli stepped aside, allowing her in. Amara entered cautiously, her eyes sweeping over the marble floors, the chandeliers, the wide living room adorned with fine paintings. She clutched her bag tighter, her breaths uneven. Sit, my daughter, Baba urged, pointing to the sofa. She sat gingerly, her back stiff, as though afraid she might stain the expensive fabric. Baba lowered himself onto his chair with grace, while Kunli remained standing, his gaze never leaving her face. Baba began. Amara, yesterday you brought me food when you thought I had nothing. You offered to farm with me when you thought I was homeless. That is why I asked you to come. Because today I want you to see me as I am. And still I want to know, will your heart remain the same? Amara's lips trembled. She looked from father to son, her mind swirling. Papa, I do not know what to say. You hid your identity. You made me believe you were a beggar. Why? Why test me like this? Baba's eyes softened. Because the world is filled with people who smile at the rich and scorn the poor. I needed to know who would treat me with dignity even in rags. And you, my daughter, did not fail me. Silence settled. Then Kunli finally spoke, his voice low but steady. Amara, yesterday you and I planted seeds together. And today I discover that the woman who touched me with her laughter is the same woman who touched my father with her kindness. Fate has spoken louder than any words. Amara turned toward him, her cheeks warming. For a moment their eyes held unspoken truths shimmering between them. But then she shook her head, standing abruptly. No, this is too much. I am just a poor girl, the daughter of farmers in Abia. I have nothing to offer this family. Baba rose too, his voice firm. Do not speak of yourself like that. Wealth is measured in character, not coins. You have given us more than riches, you have given us peace. Her tears spilled freely now. She bowed her head. I don't know if I can belong here. Kunli stepped forward, his voice gentle but strong. Amara, you already belong here. From the moment you defended my father without knowing who he was, you proved your worth more than any diamond ever could. Her chest tightened. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe his words. At that very moment, the heavy silence was broken by the sound of heels clicking on marble. The door had opened again. All three turned. Zainab stood there. She was dressed in her most expensive attire, her face painted with flawless makeup, her lips curved into a smile that did not reach her eyes. She had come uninvited. Kunle, she said sweetly, I needed to see you. Kunle stiffened. Zainab, you should not be here. Her eyes flicked to Amara, narrowing with contempt. So this is her, she sneered. This is the little farm girl who thinks she can take my place. Amara lowered her gaze, but Baba's firm voice cut through the tension. Mind your words, young woman. In this house, every guest is honored. Zainab smirked. Honored, a girl who digs in the soil, a girl who smells of sweat and poverty. She is beneath you, Kunle, beneath us all. Kunle's jaw tightened, his anger rising. Enough, Zainab. I told you yesterday this is over. But she stepped closer, her eyes blazing. No, you cannot throw me aside for her. Do you know who I am? Do you know what people will say if you marry a nobody? I know exactly who you are, Baba interjected, his voice sharp. You are the woman who twice spat on me when you thought I was poor, and now you reveal yourself again, pouring poison from your lips. Do not speak of nobodies. It is your heart that is empty. Zainab's mask cracked fury, twisting her features. This is not finished, she spat, spinning on her heels. She stormed out, her perfume lingering like smoke after a fire. The room was quiet again, heavy with the residue of her venom. Amara sat slowly, shaken but silent. Kunle turned to her, his expression softening. Do not let her words wound you, he said. They reveal her weakness, not yours. Baba nodded. Remember, my daughter, a diamond buried in the earth is still a diamond. One day when it shines, those who mocked it will cover their faces in shame. Amara breathed deeply, her strength returning. She wiped her tears, her chin lifting ever so slightly. Thank you, Papa. Thank you, Kunle. That night, as the household settled, Baba sat alone in his study. He reflected on the day, on Amara's tears, on Zainab's fury. He knew the storm was not over. Pride rarely surrenders without striking back. Yet he also knew that character once revealed was like a seed already sprouting. Somewhere across the city in her apartment, Zainab poured herself another glass of wine, her hands shaking with rage. She picked up her phone, dialing the number she had called before. "Sko," she hissed when the rough voice answered. "I don't care what it takes. That girl must be gone. And if the old man stands in the way, make him disappear too. Do you understand?" The man on the other end grunted, but in his heart doubt stirred. He remembered Kunli, the man who had once paid his mother's hospital bills, the man who had given his sister a job when no one else would. Could he truly betray such a person? He said nothing of his hesitation. He simply replied, "I understand." And so the shadows thickened. In the Adawale mansion, hope blossomed quietly between Kunle and Amara. But beyond its gates, a dangerous plot was already being woven. The question was no longer whether Kunle had found love. It was whether that love could survive the storm that pride and vengeance were preparing to unleash. The air in the Adewale mansion was thick with expectation. The events of the past days, Zainab's public disgrace, Amara's sudden discovery of Baba Adewale's true identity, and Kunle's restless heart had unsettled the family. Yet something new lingered beneath the surface, hope. Hope that for once kindness and humility might outweigh beauty and pride. That evening, Kunle requested a private conversation with Amara in the large sitting room. The chandeliers glowed softly, casting golden light on the polished marble floor. Baba Adewale excused himself to the courtyard, leaving them alone. Amara sat nervously on the edge of the couch, her fingers twisting the hem of her simple gown. Kunle sat across from her, his usually confident face uncertain. For a long while he simply studied her calm posture, her unadorned beauty, her quiet dignity. Finally he spoke. "Amara, I don't want to waste words. I know we met only recently, but I feel something I've never felt before. From the moment you defended my father at the supermarket to when we planted seeds under the mango tree, I've seen your heart, and I cannot ignore what I see." Amara looked up, startled by the intensity of his tone. "Kunle," he leaned forward, his voice sincere. "I love you. I won't pretend it is anything less. You are the woman I want to marry." Her eyes widened. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, struggling to find words. At last she whispered, "You don't know me well enough. My life is not easy. My parents are poor farmers in Abia. I have no wealth, no name. How can you be certain?" Kunle shook his head. "Wealth can be built, names can change, but character cannot be bought. I know enough. You gave dignity to a man you thought had nothing. That tells me everything I need." Her chest tightened, tears welling in her eyes. "You love me truly." "I do," he said, his voice steady. "And I want to honor not just you, but your family too. I want to go to Abia, kneel before your parents, and ask for their blessing. They must leave the village, Amara. They have suffered enough. I will give them a home here in Lagos. They will rest, and you will never again carry shame for being poor." The words struck her like thunder. She stared at him, stunned. You would do that for them." Kunle reached for her hand. "Amara, I am not only marrying you, I am marrying into your family. Their struggle is my struggle now. Their peace is my responsibility. If my wealth does not lift the hands that raised you, then it is worthless." Tears spilled freely down her cheeks. No one had ever spoken such words to her. She nodded slowly, her voice breaking. "Then yes, Kunle, if you truly want me, I will be your wife." He squeezed her hand tightly, his face alight with joy. "Thank you, Amara. You have given me more than I deserve." At that moment, Baba Adewale entered, his walking stick tapping softly. He had been listening from the corridor, his heart swelling with pride. "My children," he said, his voice trembling with emotion, "this is the answer to my prayers. Kunle, you have found peace, and Amara, you have brought light into our home." They both stood. Amara bowed her head respectfully, but Baba lifted her chin with a gentle hand. "From today, you are my daughter." The days that followed were filled with preparations. Word spread quickly. Kunle Adewale, one of Lagos's wealthiest young men, was marrying a simple farm girl. Reactions were mixed. Some praised his choice, calling it a victory for humility and love. Others mocked him, whispering that he had lost his senses. But no one was more furious than Zainab. At a luxury spa with her friends, she overheard the whispers, "Kunle is marrying a village girl. She is not even from Lagos. They say she studied agriculture, but has no job." The gossip stung like acid. Rage twisted Zainab's face. "He cannot do this to me," she spat, rising abruptly. Her friends tried to calm her, but she stormed out. That night in her apartment, she poured herself drink after drink, her thoughts spiraling into vengeance. She dialed a number she had kept hidden, the one man she trusted for dirty work. Skoshi said coldly when he answered, I want you to destroy him. Plant drugs in Kunle's office. Alert the police. Make him fall. And as for that girl Amara and his useless old father, make sure they never wake up. Do you understand? There was a long silence on the line. Finally, Sko grunted. You'll pay well. Anything, Zainab snapped. Money is not the problem. Just get it done. She hung up her chest, heaving. In her mind, she had already won. But what she didn't know was that Sko was not the same man he once was. He remembered Kunle clearly, the man who had given his sister a job when no one believed in her. The man who had paid their mother's hospital bills when death loomed, the man who had saved his family from being thrown into the streets. Sko sat alone in the dark, his phone still in his hand. His mind was torn. How could he betray the man who once saved his family? Finally, he picked up the phone again, this time pressing record. He dialed Zainab once more. When she answered, he said calmly, Tell me the plan again. I need all the details. Zainab, believing he was loyal, laughed wickedly and poured out every word how the drugs should be planted, how the police should be tipped off, and how Amara and Baba should be eliminated before the wedding. When the call ended, Sko saved the recording. His decision was made. The next morning he walked into Kunle's office, his face grim but determined. Kunle was busy with business documents, but he looked up surprised. Do I know you? Kunle asked. You helped my family once, Sko said. Now it is my turn to help you. I came to warn you. Zainab has planned evil against you, against your father, and against Amara, but I will not let it happen. Kunle frowned. What are you talking about? Sko pulled out his phone and pressed play. Zainab's voice filled the room clear and venomous, spelling out her entire plan. Kunle's face darkened as he listened, his hands trembling with fury. When the recording ended, he leaned back, covering his face with his palms. She truly wished us dead. Sko nodded. I couldn't betray you, sir. You saved my family. This is how I repay you. Kunle's jaw tightened. Thank you, Sko. You have saved us again. Leave the rest to me. Within hours, the police were informed. A sting operation was set, and when Zainab, dressed in her finest clothes, strutted into a luxury restaurant later that day, she was met not with cameras or admirers, but with handcuffs. You are under arrest for conspiracy, attempted murder, and drug framing, an officer declared. What? She screamed, thrashing wildly. You fools, do you know who I am? Kunle will never. The officer pressed play on the phone. Her own voice filled the room, damning her beyond denial. The restaurant fell silent. All eyes turned to her, disgust and pity mingling. Her face drained of color as her own wicked words sealed her fate. Please, she begged, tears streaming. It wasn't me. I was angry. It was the devil. But the officers dragged her out as she wailed, her cries echoing into the night. Back at the mansion, Kunle told Baba and Amara everything. Amara clutched her chest, trembling. That could have been the end of us, she whispered. Kunle pulled her close. But it isn't, because good people still exist. People like you, Amara. People like Sko. Baba closed his eyes, whispering a prayer of gratitude. The storm had not ended yet, but the worst thunder had passed. The wedding was near. And this time no pride, no venom, no shadow would stop it. The courtroom in Lagos was packed to the brim. News of Zainab's arrest had spread like wildfire, pulling in reporters, curious onlookers, and even neighbors who once admired her flashy lifestyle. The once proud boss queen who had strutted around in designer clothes now sat trembling in the dock. Her hands cuffed her face, pale, without the layers of makeup that usually adorned it. The judge entered, his robe flowing behind him. The hall fell silent as he banged his gavel. This court is now in session. The accused Zainab Aditola stands charged with conspiracy, attempted murder, and framing an innocent man with criminal evidence. Zainab's lawyer stood immediately, his voice firm. My lord, my client denies all charges. She has been framed by enemies jealous of her success. But the prosecutor only smirked. We will see. Kunle sat at the back with Baba Adewale and Amara beside him. Baba's walking stick rested across his knees, his eyes calm yet piercing, as though they could see into the soul of every person in the room. Amara's hands were clasped tightly together, nerves etched across her face. The prosecutor called his first witness, Sko. The tall man walked forward, his shoulders squared. Once feared as a street hustler, today he walked with dignity, as though repaying a debt to life itself. He took the oath and looked directly at the judge. My lord, he began, I was hired by Zainab to destroy Kunle Adewale, his father, and his fiancée. She offered me money to plant drugs in Kunle's office and to silence the others permanently. Gasps rippled through the room. Zainab shook her head violently. Lies. He lies. But Sko raised his phone. I recorded our conversation. Every word she said. The prosecutor nodded to the court clerk. The phone was connected to the speakers, and suddenly Zainab's own voice filled the courtroom. Make sure that girl Amara never wakes up. And that old man she calls father-in-law, I want him gone forever. Plant the drugs in Kunle's office, tip the police, and watch his life crumble. The room went dead silent. Every face turned toward Zainab, whose mouth dropped open in horror. No, she cried. I was drunk. I didn't mean it. The judge leaned forward, his voice sharp. Drunk or not, these words are your own. You plotted evil, and it is recorded for all to hear. Zainab's lawyer stammered, trying to salvage the case. My lord, surely we cannot rely on a criminal's word. The judge silenced him with a wave. The evidence is clear. The voice is hers. The intent is undeniable. Baba Adewale rose slowly, his presence commanding even without the judge's robe. My lord, may I speak? The judge hesitated, then nodded. Briefly. Baba stepped forward, leaning on his walking stick. His voice was calm but heavy with wisdom. I am not here to condemn this young woman. I am here to remind us all what happens when pride blinds the heart. Twice she spat on me when she thought I was poor. And when she discovered the truth, she begged not from repentance but from fear. That is not kindness. True character is how you treat those who can do nothing for you. Today the whole city has seen her heart. Let this be a lesson to all who think wealth and beauty give them the right to trample others. The room was utterly silent. Even the judge lowered his head briefly in respect. He turned to Zainab. For your crimes of conspiracy and attempted murder, you are hereby sentenced to 15 years in prison without option of bail. The gavel struck. Zainab screamed, her voice raw and broken. No, please, Kunle, forgive me. I loved you. Kunle stood, his face hard. You loved yourself, Zainab. May you find humility in the silence of a cell. Officers dragged her out as she wailed, her once proud figure collapsing into pitiful cries. The trial was over. Outside cameras flashed as reporters swarmed around Kunle and his family. Kunle, is it true you are marrying the farm girl? Who is she? How did you meet? Kunle ignored them, shielding Amara with his arm as they made their way to the car. Baba followed his steps, slow but steady. The crowd pressed in, but Kunle's security team held them back. Once inside the car, Amara exhaled shakily. I don't like the attention, she whispered. Kunle touched her hand gently. It will pass. What matters is us. Baba nodded. The storm has ended. Now comes the planting of peace. Days later, preparations for the wedding began in earnest. The Adewale mansion buzzed with activity. Decorators hung colorful fabrics, drummers rehearsed, caterers planned feasts. Yet the most important preparation was not material. It was the journey to Amara's village in Abia. True to his word, Kunle insisted on traveling there to ask for her parents' blessing. The long drive took them through winding roads, past lush farmlands, and into the heart of the village where Amara had grown up. Children ran barefoot along the dusty paths, waving and laughing as the convoy of cars pulled in. Villagers gathered, whispering in awe, at the sight of the young billionaire stepping out in a simple agbada, bowing respectfully. Amara's parents, aged but dignified, emerged from their small mud house. Her mother wiped her hands on her wrapper, eyes wide with disbelief. Amara, you came home with... Before she could finish, Kunle dropped to his knees in the dust. Mama, Papa, I have come to ask for your daughter's hand. She is my peace, my blessing, and the joy of my father's heart. I want to honor her by honoring you. Leave this house. Come to the city. I will give you a home where you will rest from your years of labor. Tears spilled down her mother's cheeks. Her father placed a trembling hand on Kunle's head. My son, rise. You have spoken with humility. You have shown us honor. From today, you are not only a husband to our daughter, but a son to us as well. The village erupted in cheers. Women ululated, drummers beat rhythms of joy, and children danced. Amara stood, frozen tears streaming down her face. She had never imagined such a day would come. That night, as they prepared to return to Lagos, Baba Adewale sat with Amara's father beneath the stars. They shared stories of youth, of farming, of struggles long past. At one point, Baba clasped his friend's hand. Your daughter saved me when she thought I was nothing. For that, she has saved my son as well. May this union heal generations. When they returned to Lagos, the city was already buzzing with the news. Kunle Adewale to marry simple farm girl from Abia, headlines blared. Some mocked, others praised. But none could deny the anticipation building for the wedding of the year. As the big day approached, Baba reflected deeply. He knew this was more than a marriage. It was a message that humility could triumph over pride, that character could outshine wealth, that dignity could not be bought but only lived. And though Zainab now sat behind bars, bitterness eating at her heart, Baba prayed even for her. For sometimes prison could be the field where even the hardest hearts were broken, watered, and forced to grow. The drums were ready, the dancers awaited, the feast was being prepared. Soon the final chapter of this story would unfold, not in shadows but in light. The wedding day dawned like no other. The sky above Lagos was painted with a golden glow, as though the heavens themselves had chosen to bless the union. From the crack of dawn, the Adewale mansion was alive with music, the beating of talking drums, the sound of shekere rattles, and the melodious chants of traditional praise singers. Women in brightly colored jeel bustled about carrying trays of steaming jollof rice and spicy goat pepper soup, while men arranged chairs beneath a grand canopy decorated with vibrant Ankara fabrics. Amara stood in her room, her heart racing, as women from both Lagos and Abia helped her dress. They wrapped her in a stunning Igbo lace blouse and a shimmering wrapper, then crowned her head with coral beads and a delicate jewel. Her reflection in the mirror startled her. This was not the simple farm girl she had always been, but a bride radiating dignity. Yet her eyes still held the same humility. "Amara, you look like a queen," one of the women whispered. Amara shook her head softly. "No, a queen wears a crown. I wear my parents' blessing. That is enough." Meanwhile, Kunle prepared in his father's study. He wore an immaculate Yoruba agbada of white and gold, a fila cap resting on his head. Around his neck hung coral beads to honor Amara's heritage, symbolizing the unity of Yoruba and Igbo cultures. Baba Adewale stood beside him, his hand resting on his son's shoulder. "My son," he said gravely, "today you do not only marry Amara, you marry her kindness, her humility, her courage. You marry her family, her history, her struggles. Do not forget this when the drums fade and the crowd goes home." Kunle nodded, his voice steady. "I will not forget Papa. I will honor her as you honored Mama." The ceremony began with thunderous applause as Amara was led down the aisle of the grand courtyard, her parents at her side. The villagers from Abia, who had traveled long distances, ululated with joy, while Lagos socialites whispered in disbelief. How could the richest young man in Victoria Island choose a farm girl? But as Amara walked, her grace silenced even the most cynical tongues. When Kunle and Amara stood side by side, the officiant, a respected elder, raised his hands. "Today we witness not only a marriage but a joining of worlds. Yoruba and Igbo wealth and simplicity, city and village. May this union remind us all that love is not built on riches but on character." The couple exchanged vows. Kunle's voice trembled with emotion as he said, "I choose you, Amara, not because of what you have, but because of who you are. You are my peace." Amara, tears glistening in her eyes, replied, "I choose you, Kunle, not because of your wealth, but because you see me. You honor my family and you value my heart." When the rings were slipped onto their fingers, the drums erupted and the crowd cheered. Women danced, men sprayed crisp Nara notes in celebration, and children twirled with joy. Baba Adewale wiped a tear from his eye, whispering, "At last my son has found a wife who will bring peace into his home." But the celebration was not only marked by dance and laughter. Kunle rose after the feast, his voice cutting through the music. "Friends, family, and elders, I have an announcement. Today, as I take Amara as my wife, I also take her parents as my own. No longer will they toil in the village. They will live here in a house I have given them. Their years of struggle are over. They will rest as they deserve." The crowd gasped, then erupted into applause. Amara's parents wept openly, falling to their knees in gratitude. Amara rushed to Kunle, embracing him tightly, her heart overflowing with love. News of the wedding spread quickly across Lagos. Some mocked, but many were moved. Perhaps wealth is not everything, people murmured. Perhaps love still matters. Even in prison, Zainab heard the news. She sat on her bunk, her once perfect nails, chipped, her designer clothes replaced with a rough uniform. She stared at the wall, bitterness burning in her chest. Yet, as the distant echoes of wedding drums reached her through the barred window, a strange crack formed in her pride. For the first time, she whispered to herself, "I had everything, but I lost it to my arrogance." Whether those words would bloom into repentance remained to be seen. Back at the Adewale mansion, the celebration lasted deep into the night. Traditional dancers leapt into the air, masquerades twirled in colorful costumes, and elders blessed the couple with proverbs. A home without peace is like a drum without skin, one said, but a home with humility will never run dry. Later, when the guests had gone and the music faded, Kunle and Amara sat beneath the mango tree in the courtyard, the same tree where they had first planted seeds together. The moonlight bathed them in silver. Do you remember, Kunle said softly, how you laughed at me for having clean shoes in the farm? Amara chuckled. Yes. And now look at you, still clean, but willing to get dirty when it matters. He reached for her hand, his voice tender. Amara, those seeds we planted were not just for the soil. They were for us. Our love will grow as patiently as those plants, watered with respect, nourished with humility. She leaned against him, her heart full. Then let's promise, Kunle. No matter the wealth, no matter the world, we will never forget who we are. We will build together like farmers tending a field. He nodded, pressing his forehead against hers. It is a promise. From that day forward, Kunle and Amara not only built a marriage, but a vision. With Baba Adiwale's blessing, they started the Green Hands Cooperative, an initiative to support young farmers across Nigeria. They provided tools, seeds, and training, lifting hundreds of families from poverty. Their story became not just one of love, but of transformation, proof that humility and character could birth movements far greater than pride ever could. And so as the talking drums whispered into the night, Lagos remembered the tale of a beggar who was not a beggar, a son who sought peace, a woman whose kindness rewrote destiny, and a proud queen whose arrogance led her to chains. It was a lesson written not on paper but in lives. True wealth is not measured in gold, but in the goodness of the heart. Dear friends, what do we learn from this story? We see that pride blinds while humility opens doors. Zainab had beauty, wealth, and status, but her arrogance destroyed her future. Amara had nothing the world considered valuable, yet her heart of kindness lifted her into honor. Baba Adiwale reminds us that appearances deceive, but character is the true measure of worth. And Kunle teaches us that real love is not about chasing beauty or wealth. It is about choosing peace, dignity, and respect. In our lives, we must ask, how do we treat those who can do nothing for us? Do we lift them up or do we trample them down? Remember, character shines when no one is watching. If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you believe in more tales of humility, love, and wisdom, subscribe to our channel and join our family of storytellers.